All right, what's going on, everyone? For those new to the channel, my name is Alexander Levine. I'm a personal trainer with Ankylosing Spondylitis. So a question I get asked a lot: can we lift heavy weights with ankylosing spondylitis? Can we lift weights? Are we more at risk of injury when we're weightlifting? And this is something I've seen over the years. Just there can be so many messages about fitness, which makes it so confusing. And working with folks, around America, around the world, and meeting folks around the world with this, doctors, rheumatologists, health professionals can tell someone kind of like the opposite advice from another person. So everyone is kind of going off of what they're being told, and that can make it really difficult. So when I was first diagnosed, I was told stick to more low impact exercises, swimming, physical therapy. There wasn't much talk about weightlifting, and I was a personal trainer. There was really zero talk about weightlifting, and I realized over the years that the importance of strength training for ankylosing spondylitis might actually be more important for us than, say, the normal person without inflammatory arthritis. I think we benefit more from it than anyone because we're dealing with different circumstances in the body. We're dealing with sometimes damage, fusion, a lot of severe stiffness and tightness, where strength training is not just great for building muscle, but also helping with flexibility, circulation, blood flow. And without strength training, stretching doesn't do everything that we need. Stretching is a great tool. We need it. It helps with strength training, but the strength training is incredibly important, and I think more important for us than anyone else, to be honest. So the first thing is, with weightlifting, with strength training, we want to do things safely. We don't want to risk injury. We want to do things where we can find progress. We want to build strength, help flexibility, but we also want to utilize it to feel better. And that's the first thing I look at. How are you feeling during the exercise? How are you feeling after the exercise? Were you more at risk of injury, or were you in that perfect spot where you're able to even train hard and it feels good and you're not getting incredible soreness? So everyone with this is drastically different. Everyone with ankylosing spondylitis, we all have maybe similar symptoms, but no person is exactly alike. We're all dealing with different circumstances. Some people have to be a little more careful with their shoulders. Maybe someone's dealing with foot pain with this. Maybe someone has that extreme mid-back tightness where certain exercises we have to be a little more cautious. So it really comes down to exercise. Things can be drastically different. So I want to talk about myself for a second. Do I lift heavy weights? Yeah, in some fashions, in some areas, I lift heavy weights. I also lift really light weights, and I use light resistance because I found that can create more blood flow, more circulation, something that might not come from heavy lifting. Heavy lifting can be great for more strength and getting stronger, but all the studies show us that we can build strength through a lot of different rep ranges and light weights. Anything can be used. It's really any sort of stimulus, any sort of resistance can be used, and that can be body weight exercises too. So the key is to find that perfect place for you. So for me, some areas I lift heavy. I like to use machines and maybe lift heavy in a more supported fashion, but I probably wouldn't do that with dumbbells. I probably wouldn't do a heavy dumbbell press overhead, not anymore. I like to use machines for that reason, to have a little more support. Or if I'm doing any sort of press away from the body, I don't like using the bench. It causes a little bit of SI joint pain if I do a flat bench, so I use machines for that reason, or I use resistance bands. I like to lift, squats. I've worked it up really slowly over the years, and more resistance kind of helps me there to get into a nice range of motion for the hips, and it feels great on the low back. But deadlifts, I don't like to load deadlifts up with that much weight. Some people, they can load up a deadlift. It feels good on the back. It helps their flexibility. For me, I always feel a little tweak in the low back. It's just not a great position for me to load, but I still do them in different ways. I do them with a lot lighter weights or resistance bands, or I do a single leg deadlift. So we have to kind of look at the whole body. How do we build strength in the whole body? And some areas might be a lot more vulnerable than other areas. Even something as simple as a calf raise. For some folks, they might feel pain in their foot, or their hamstring and calf are too tight, and just doing a calf raise gives pain. Now, you might say a calf raise is a really easy exercise, but I don't really believe it's so different for everyone. Easy exercises, hard exercises, it's different for everyone. It's more about finding the sweet spot. So a lot of things I think about, we're thinking about the range of motion. Sometimes we have to reduce the range of motion, especially when we're getting started with this. We have to maybe work a smaller range of motion. So instead of getting, if you're doing, say, a press and you're doing a bench press and your shoulders are coming all the way back, so you're doing really full range and that's ache in the shoulder, I'm someone who would just start with a really small range of motion, or I would change the exercise. So we have to find some different ways to adapt to some of these positions. But at the same time, we want to choose positions that feel good on the body. Sometimes a movement just isn't good for us, and I like to look elsewhere. After kind of adapting a movement and changing the position, if it still doesn't feel good, I like to build strength in different ways and think about how do we build strength for this particular muscle in the safest way possible. So there's so many variations to everything, and I think it's just about building on the right approach, the right exercises. So some people can lift heavy and it feels good. Others, the heavy weights just don't feel good. So I advise them to use a lot less resistance, blood flow, get some more repetitions with less resistance. We're seeing from every study that you can build strength, muscle with light weights the same as heavy weights. We just need to apply the proper stimulus on the body, the proper resistance, but never think that lifting light weights won't do anything, because any form of resistance can do something if it's done the right way, right? So I do a lot less weights, high repetition, but also I'll lift heavy in some areas. So one of the things too is with ankylosing spondylitis, symptoms can be different. I talk about this a lot where, say I have a particular exercise I'm working on, like I was talking about, I'm doing a seated press on a machine. So my back's into the machine and I'm pressing straight up with it. I can't go full range right now because I'm in my car, but I would full range, my back's pressed in, a pretty safe position for me. I've done it a lot over the years, but say I'm doing 50 pounds there. 50 pounds feels good, 50 pounds feels good, but then maybe I'm recovering from a flare and I just have a lot more tightness in my shoulders. And then I try to lift at 50 pounds and it feels like maybe I could tear something. And that's kind of the adaptation of ankylosing spondylitis. So sometimes on those days, if I'm feeling like I'm a lot more stiff and tight, or just the energy levels aren't there and I'm still trying to keep the consistency going, that's where I have to change things up. My usual weight could, I could be at risk of more injury. It's happened to me where, I've tried to do what I did prior, but I wasn't feeling as good, and maybe I'm at risk of more injury. So that's where we certainly need to be more careful and cautious and think about the warm-up, the cool-down. Start light. We don't have to just start with the weights we use. If we usually use 50 pounds, we don't have to start there. Start extremely light and make sure it feels good. Do more repetitions and then say, oh, okay, it's loosening up here, it's loosening up. This feels good. I can actually probably get back to 50 pounds today. Or stick with the light weights and you go back to your usual weights next time. You're not going to lose the progress. I tell people this all the time. When we build a base of fitness and we're dealing with more stiffness and tightness here and there, and you're feeling anxious about, I have to do the same weights I've always done, or I don't want to regress. It's not regression. That's the adaptation of ankylosing spondylitis. Sometimes we're a lot more stiff and tight. Try different things. On those days, I'm always trying different things just to get the blood flowing, the circulation. That's all I think about on those days. And then sometimes I'm able to lift my usual weights. Sometimes I ease off. So heavy weightlifting can be a great tool for some folks, but the key is we have to build it slow. And I think slower than a normal individual, right? I hate to say that, but I want to compare just inflammatory arthritis with a normal individual, where sometimes they can just go full throttle and feel fine. Sometimes someone with AS can go full throttle and feel fine, but I do think we have to be a little more careful, for sure, because we're dealing with different circumstances. The SI joints can get tweaked a little easier. The stiffness and tightness can sometimes cause us to tweak something easy. So that's why I'm a very cautious trainer. When I train, I really warm up. I start with a reduced range of motion through my stretches and through my strength training, because I want to make sure my body feels good. I'm kind of benefiting from the movement and I'm loosening up, and then I can kind of build it that way. But this is kind of where over time we have to keep track of things, where you try a movement and it doesn't feel good, it causes pain. We want no pain when we exercise. We never want pain. That's something that I focus on. That's my number one focus. No pain when we exercise. Things can be stiff and tight when we start out, but if we can loosen that up, then that means we're heading in the right direction, and we're feeling good during the workout, we're feeling good after. Those are things I think about because we want consistency, and over time you'll be able to say, oh, this makes sense where I can build it. And then someday you might be lifting heavy weights, but for some people we can just use light resistance and see the same benefit. So to kind of close this out, strength training, crucial, more important for us than anybody. We need it. How to get there is going to be determined by each individual, and I strive people to try different methods. For me, sometimes I would give up on a certain movement because it didn't feel good, but I told myself, let's find something else to do to build it, and maybe that other movement will feel good the more I build strength and flexibility. And that generally was the case. I was then able to do maybe say harder things in the gym, right? Because I built it in a really slow way. I built the weight in a really slow way where I'm not jumping up from 5 pounds to 20 pounds. I'm jumping up from 5 pounds to 6 pounds, 5 pounds to 7 pounds, very slowly. And that's how you build the great base with this. And we don't want surprises on the body. We want pain-free range of motion, no surprises. We want to find that sweet spot so we can build on that sweet spot where we challenge the body, but it feels good. And that's how we build. Hope that helps. Let me know in the comments. Are you lifting weights with ankylosing spondylitis? Have you found that it's difficult to lift weights? It's difficult to lift heavy weights? Are you someone that lifts a lot lighter weights or does body weight exercises, does yoga? Let me know in the comments how you're building with this, and we'll see you next time.